And so it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Linda Barber Auld, affectionately known by many, she has said, as Bug Lady. Ms. Auld owns and runs Barber Laboratories, a pest control supply store founded in 1921 by her grandfather, Ernest Barber. And in addition to helping New Orleanians solve their pest problems for over 40 years, Linda also studied and promoted understanding beneficial insects. She has raised 127 species of butterflies and moths, studying and photographing their life cycles. For 26 years, she has participated or led butterfly count surveys for the North American Butterfly Association. And since 2014, Linda has installed 17 school gardens in the metro area to help monarch butterflies. She has donated countless plants to public park gardens and created monarch way stations in 7 different Louisiana cities. So thank you already for all of that you do and all of that volunteering. Ms. Linda has also given countless presentations to garden clubs, plant societies, master gardeners, and master naturalist groups. So I suspect that a lot of people on the call have heard her present before. She has also written articles for the Louisiana Gardening Magazine, the Louisiana Native Plant Society, the Orleans and our Baton Rouge Audubon Societies, and the Southern Lepidopterists Society, which now I know exists. Linda has also self-published her first book, titled Bug Lady's Butterfly Summer, and that is currently available at Barber Laboratories, Longview Gardens Gift Shop, Allen Acres B&B in Pitkin, Louisiana, Crosby Arboretum in Mississippi, and then also online at barberlaboratories.com and NOLABugLady.com, and I'm going to drop those in the comments in just a second. But aside from all of that, Ms. Auld is actually here to present on her new project, which has been celebrating the life of Caroline Dormon. And then I will leave it with that and give it over to you, Ms. Linda.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. And it's such a pleasure to be with you tonight to tell you about this amazing woman, Caroline Dormon, Louisiana pioneer woman. She led a very full life and accomplished more things than we have time to cover tonight. She died 49 years ago, and there's a whole generation of people who have never heard her name. I will touch on the highlights with hopes that each of you will be intrigued and want to know more. Caroline was a prolific writer, a multimedia artist, an accomplished botanist, a noteworthy archaeologist, an esteemed forester, school teacher, and tireless conservationist. Wow. She has such a variety of occupations. It's quite impressive. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. Let's go back. When I look at the long list, I think to myself, is there anything this woman couldn't do? Well, yes, she couldn't drive a car. However, she could handle a mule team that carried her to a teaching job and back home every day. Women living in that era were expected to marry, raise children, and do the housework. Yet from sunrise to sundown, her feisty determination drove her to share her deep knowledge of nature's ecosystems of plants, insects, and birds. To really appreciate Caroline's achievements, let's revisit her world of the late 1880s then and compare it to our world of today. Entertainment 132 years ago were simple pleasures of picnicking and strolling through a garden. In today's world, the list of entertainment choices is endless, but you see that some things never change. We humans still love those simple pleasures. Forms of communication were very limited back then: letter writing, newsletters, magazines, word of mouth at garden club meetings and church socials spread the news. Nowadays, everything is powered by electronic gadgetry, and we view history live as it's happening halfway around the world. I find it amazing that this woman from this little town of Saline, Louisiana, was able to amaze master gardeners from all over the world with her talents and wealth of knowledge, presented in her many interesting articles and fabulous books of her exquisite artwork. Fashions have definitely taken a giant leap of change. Imagine climbing a tree, digging a garden, or sloshing through a bog to dig an iris in that dress. Anything goes with modern day fashions that are much more practical and definitely more comfortable. One of 5 children, Caroline spent her childhood years at Briarwood, their family's vacation home. Her father was a lawyer by profession, but avid naturalist for love. Her papa taught Caroline the names and habits of the animals, flowers, and trees. Her family enjoyed nature walks together, which helped her to develop a long line of lifelong interest in plants and wildlife. As they walked along the trails, Caroline began looking for longleaf pines, her most beloved trees. The grounds were covered with goat's rue with its pink and cream pea flowers. They stopped to watch masses of butterflies on the wildflower carpet. This was the legacy of Caroline Dormon, a family that valued the simple but beautiful joys of nature. In the April 13th, 1997 Times-Picayune article, Jeanette Hardy writes, "There would be a cocklebur caught on the hem of her skirt, bits of leaves and pine needles, or wisps of cobwebs and cocoons stuck to her shoulders. Fair complexion, her hair braided into a crown or pulled back severely into a bun. Straw-colored, eyes green as chlorophyll, conditioned to detect the barest flicker of movement." Many articles were written about Caroline. She's been described as the Audubon of wildflowers, a female Thoreau, a wild goose, the prima donna of the plant world, a woman of many interests, one of Louisiana's foremost educators, queen of the forest kingdom, and my favorite, a tiny doll-like woman of granite will. You got to admit, that is impressive. Unheard of that a woman of that day and age would pursue a formal education, Caroline was educated at Judson College in Marion, Alabama, with a bachelor's degree in literature and art. For several years, she taught first grade singing and drawing in Bienville Parish schools. Boarding with a family in Provençal, Caroline made the 20-mile trip to Cosachi School in a wagon pulled by a pair of stout mules. She noticed more than the dirt roads. She said, "Over the rolling hills we wound, through mile after mile of majestic longleaf pines. I was in heaven." In 1918, she reestablished her home at Briarwood, where she began to collect, catalog, and preserve native trees and shrubs. Her diversified career was filled with fascinating jobs that led her throughout the state. In 1922, she persuaded the U.S. Forestry Service to consider establishing a national forest in Louisiana. She also developed forestry education materials for schools and promoted forestry conservation that was supported by civic leaders. During that time, she was asked to identify the trees and shrubs in our Audubon Park so that they could be permanently tagged. Her work became noticed in and out of the state. Mississippi State Forester Roy L. Hogue wrote to Caroline, "We are eager to secure your services for our state. I know no one else to whom I would be willing to entrust this work. Our commission would be willing to pay almost any salary in reason for this work because we consider it extremely important. So name the salary that you think might induce you to come over to Mississippi and help us." In spite of this name your salary offer, Carrie's loyalty to Louisiana could not be purchased, and Carrie's dream of a national forest was not diminished. In 1930, during the administration of President Herbert Hoover, U.S. Representative James Aswell worked with Caroline to establish the Cosachi National Forest. In 1941, she was hired as beautification consultant for the Louisiana Highway Department. There was not even a job title for this new position. The Department of Civil Service sent employment forms to Caroline with her title listed as beautician, which she asked them to correct, explaining, My work is quite different. And the title was not only the only bureaucratic hurdle. She had to battle lack of concern, commitment, and organization in addition to state budgets and politics. Also in 1941, the Board of Public Welfare employed her landscaping consulting talents to naturescape the Huey P. Long Charity Hospital grounds in Pineville. Her master plan involved keeping most of the existing plants, trees, and shrubs. She also planned a cutting garden so that some flowers could be brought inside the hospital. Before the end of the project, the political situation changed and the funding was canceled. Caroline had to battle budget funds and politics, as well as the newcomers of political change. In 1961, the 301-acre Louisiana State Arboretum that she had proposed was dedicated. In 1964, Caroline was consultant for the popular Hodges Garden State Park in nearby Chico State Park. The Caroline Dormon Lodge opened in 1965 at the Arboretum, which serves as visitor center, library, and native plant herbarium. The Arboretum is a wonderful place to hike, observe nature, and learn more about Caroline. One of her assignments that piqued my curiosity was her involvement with the DeSoto Expedition Commission. Members were appointed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. It was established to study and provide a report to Congress that determined DeSoto's actual route discovering America, along with recommendations for a celebration of the expedition's 400th anniversary. Caroline was the only woman selected to join this team of prominent men. She knew that the Indians had played an important part in the explorations of DeSoto. For years, she had engaged in extensive study of early American inhabitants and explorers. She had corresponded with others who shared these interests, exchanging ideas and materials. Her theories were interesting and plausible. Caroline was honored with many prestigious awards, such as the Eloise Payne Lacker Award by the Garden Club of America, the Honorary Doctorate of Science from LSU in Baton Rouge for distinguished scientific achievement. Schools have been named after her, parks, and now her home is a visitor center. This is the plant that catapulted Caroline into worldwide fame. Iris Giganestarulia, also called giant blue iris. It grew in bogs where most ladies of the day would not be walking. Caroline loved its exquisite color and giant size. When I visited Briarwood, I was surprised to see that she had constructed a chain-link fence around her iris bog, which sparked my curiosity. She must have really prized this plant to protect it with a fence. Word of mouth spread the news about this profoundly different plant, which made it a must-see and a must-have, and made her famous. The collection of Caroline's letters attests to professional correspondence with notable national figures, including the president's wife, Lady Bird Johnson, inventor Thomas Edison, garden writer Elizabeth Lawrence, famed botanist Dr. J.K. Small, and landscape architect Ellen Biddle Shipman. Thomas Edison asked for Carey's assistance in securing specimens of various kinds of goldenrod for his experiments to discover an alternative source of rubber to be used for Ford cars. Taken from a letter he wrote to Caroline while working at his Orange, New Jersey lab and dated June 27, 1930, Edison writes, "I would ask that you kindly send about 2 grams of the leaves of the goldenrod after the flowers have closed and the seed is ripening." For over a year, Carey collected leaves, stems, seeds, and roots. Edison shared with Carey the results of his experiments. Edith Stern, creator of Longview Gardens of New Orleans, befriended Caroline through a Garden Club of America roadside wildflower project. Their working relationship grew, as did their friendship, to the point where Edith was inspired in 1934 to finance the publishing of Caroline's first book, Wildflowers of Louisiana. Subsequently, Edith commissioned Caroline as a consultant for Longview to suggest and supply native plant selections and place them in Longview's wild garden. This relationship continued from 1947 until her death in 1971. By the 1950s, Caroline became good friends with Frank and Sarah Gladney of Baton Rouge through Sarah's beautification projects. Sarah was deeply involved with the Garden Club Federation and was very intrigued by Caroline's fountain of plant knowledge and artistic talents. In 1965, Frank and Sarah, both avid gardeners, purchased a 360-acre land parcel in Gloucester, Mississippi. They began enhancing the already beautiful landscape of rolling hills and deep ravines by adding a wide variety of native plants. Meanwhile, for 10 years, Caroline had been searching for a publisher for her Natives of the Deep South book, and was met with more misunderstandings and difficulties of contracting and financing. At one point, exasperated, she called upon Frank Gladney, who was a lawyer, to write a gentle protest to the publisher to help finalize the printing. These are all the wonderful books written by or about Caroline Dormon. I will now briefly describe each one. Wildflowers of Louisiana. In this wonderful book, Caroline expresses particular preference for certain plant attributes such as fragrance, color, and leaf shape. The perfume of crabapples was a favorite, and she planted them all over Briarwood. Another was Indian pipes, a strange flower that grew like a fungus from decaying vegetable matter, which has no color but was a true flower and bears seeds. She liked shrubs with small leaves. She adored fluffy white flowers of spring and fall's colored leaves. Flowers native to the Deep South. I find it interesting that Caroline constantly preached conservation and preservation of the rapidly vanishing wildflowers. She specifies that she felt too frequent picking, misdirected efforts to move them to gardens, forest fires, and onslaughts of rabbits and insects was causing some species to become very rare. Imagine that. Almost 50 years later, this shows how things have changed. Nowadays, wildflowers vanish due to the daily loss of more green space due to ever-climbing human population and urban sprawl. Some of the best gardening advice she ever gave was, if one attempts to grow native plants, their natural environment, soil, etc., must be studied and imitated. Caroline really loved particular native shrubs. One of her friends told her a location where Stewartia grew, and to thank her, she wrote later to her, "If you had sent me a rope of pearls or a diamond tiara, you would not have made me half so happy." Caroline was already pioneering the Rethink Pretty motto in Natives Preferred. Throw out the window the idea of planting flowers in geometrical design, but be informal with softly rounded masses of foliage and flowers scattered freely by hand. Caroline underscores the beauty of native plants. Her descriptions are frequently lyrical. She wrote, "Dogwood whitened the hillsides, while every stream bank and low ground becomes a mass of dainty pink, the wild azalea. Grand Sir Graybeard puts on his fringe, and masses of lovely crabapples sweeten the air, while the ground beneath is clothed in bright blue and lavender violets, wild phlox, and verbena." Doesn't that sound scrumptious? Caroline advocated for education and support of the Choctaw and Chittimaw tribes of Louisiana. Southern Indian Boy has two stories describing the local Indian life. In addition to teaching Caroline about nature, her father instilled other interests, the children of nature, the Indians, and their culture. Mr. Dormon obtained available bulletins and tracts about Indians and their culture. Caroline listened to her father read from these works before she could read, and she knew by picture many of the Indian chiefs. Bird Talk is a collection of many articles she had written for the Shreveport Times. Growing up in a small Louisiana town, she and her brother collected bird eggs and displayed them with the bird names the children had given them, such as Top Knot, Tom Tit, Bull Bat. They were allowed to build a treehouse where they could watch the birds build their nests. Yes, she first learned the birds as a child, but it wasn't until she and Virginia moved to Briarwood that she had the opportunity to closely study birds. She is quoted to have said, "From the very first, birds fascinated me, and my father, a very good naturalist, taught me their common names. The term birdwatcher had not yet been invented then, but nevertheless, I became one as soon as I could walk about the yard." I love that. This book has little chats telling the things that she learned by living intimately with birds throughout her long life. The Gift of the Wild Things, The Life of Caroline Dormon. The fascinating and many-faceted career of this unconventional woman is outlined by Fran Holman Johnson, who examines Dormon's childhood environment, her love of nature, her education, her brief career as a teacher, her relationship with numerous scholars, writers, and artists, and her success as a naturalist. Folks, when I began reading this book, I didn't want to put it down. Wondering just what she was going to do next held me intrigued and spellbound. Personally, I find her country sayings to be very descriptive and endearing. Some of my favorites are, "Trees are donning their green uniform. Fall brings a riot of color. Leaf miners are villainous rabbits. Willy-nilly. Hybridizing is meddling with God's business. Humbly thankful. My fingers are tingling for the brush. I'm scorching the typewriter ribbon to tell you this." I love that one. In 2010, Fran Holman published Adventures in Wildflowers, The Timeless Writings of Caroline Dormon. She published horticultural and gardening books and articles more than 75 years ago, yet her writings are still timely, still potent. This work is a collection of 50 of those articles first published in botanical and gardening magazines, including the American Home, Holland's Magazine, Home Gardening for the South, Flower Grower, and the Bulletin for the American Iris Society. In October of 2019, my cousin Lisa Norman and I visited Briarwood Nature Preserve in Saline, and we enjoyed a personal tour given by David Johnson. I'd like to share a few of the highlights. Caroline is honored by this artistic bust that is displayed at her birthplace site. Several trails like this one invite visitors to explore and experience the raw beauty of the forest. In spring of 2019, Briarwood suffered a tornado that damaged the roof of every building on the property. Here's Caroline's home. I just love the baskets hung under the porch ceilings as an invitation for birds to nest. Grandpappy, the old longleaf pine, was Caroline's favorite tree, and in many ways Caroline was like the 250-year-old longleaf pine she named Grandpappy. Both Grandpappy and Caroline were beautiful creatures of nature who had survived. When foresters told her that she would probably outlive Grandpappy, she countered, "I know better. My very soul lives in that beautiful old gnarled and weather-beaten tree." Oh my, the tales he could tell of this rugged survival through the storms of life. Caroline created Wings Rest Pond because she envisioned that Grandpappy's reflection would look pretty on the water. She was such a visionary. The camera cannot capture the true beauty of this site. Caroline loved sharing her beautiful briarwood plants. Through the years, she exchanged seeds, plants, and information with the Irish Society of London. She also supplied the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew with seeds of various plants. She sent birdfoot violet plants and dwarf iris to Japan and New Zealand. Briarwood literally blooms around the world. The writer's cabin. I can just imagine how being inside this retreat would inspire her to paint and write. In the last years of her life, as her health and her mobility diminished, she found comfort in her bird friends. She wrote, "Alas, my trampling days are over, a bad heart and a crippled hip, but my window by the fire looks out on a beautiful wild woodland where I can sit and watch my birds." I can picture in my mind that she would sit for hours thinking about which topic she would compose next. She would sit by the cozy fire with her faithful dog and look out the window to the great outdoors. She would say, "Aren't the rains delicious?" I'm just curious and want to see what surprise will meet my eyes on the other side of that hill. It's so inviting. She wrote, "I simply loved nature, always, and could not more have stopped studying birds, flowers, and trees and drawing pictures of them than I could have stopped breathing." I'm so happy to see Caroline smiling. She is mostly pictured as serious and determined. This is a Christmas card that she sent to one of her neighbors. I'm hoping that this presentation will inspire you to read her books and to visit her beloved Briarwood Nature Preserve. Experience the beautiful rambling trails filled with new blooming surprises with each season. And then you'll know how nature inspired her to draw its splendor and preserve it for generations to come. Check out Briarwood's website at www.briarwood.org. I'm better known as the NOLA BugLady. I own and operate Barber Laboratories, a 3-generation family retail store where homeowners and business owners can buy and apply professional strength pest control products on their own properties. I've raised butterflies for over 40 years and last year published my first book, self-published, Bug Lady's Butterfly Summer. All the books we've described are available at my store or online purchase. You can reach me at nolabugLady@gmail.com and check out my Facebook pages and my websites to see the upcoming scheduled events, list of available plants, and pictures of my butterfly projects. This is where you can find me Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 5 at my store located at 6444 Jefferson Highway in Harahan. I invite you to visit my store and enjoy the gardens. You can see my Louisiana certified habitat sign. My garden is filled with both butterfly nectar and caterpillar host plants. So I guess that's it, folks. Are there any questions?
Linda, that was wonderful, and that garden looks fabulous. I'm very jealous of it.
Oh, thank you. Well, when we moved in over there, it was grass, boxwood hedges, and non-native azaleas. And right now I have 96 species of native plants on that in the front and the back. And I sell the plants in the back. Excuse me. I get emotional when I talk about that woman. I can't help it.
Well, that was beautiful. So I have a question, and it's just relative to how you kind of discovered her and what was the reason for even beginning the project in the first place.
Good question. Well, I'm tied to Caroline Dormon a couple of different ways. I am a member of the Gloucester Arboretum, and my grandfather went to college with Frank Gladney. And so we had that connection. And I've been going to the Arboretum since 1995 and really enjoy it. It's a wonderful place to visit. The second connection is that her family, their family house was in Acadia, but she was born at Briarwood. And my stepfather was also born in Acadia, and so was Frank Gladney. So I've got all those connections. But then once you visit Briarwood, you're connected forever, because you can see a part of her vision of what she saw and where she walked and why she was so inspired to try to save this for generations to come. And when I visited up there in October, my projects have taken me all over the state. And so I was visiting my cousin up there. We decided to go up and visit. And we saw the horrible damage from the tornado. And I thought, you know, how can I help? And I thought that it's been too long since her name has been uttered around the world. And I just feel like I have to pick up the football and keep running with it. So I love native plants, and the more I use them, the more I love them and want to share that with people and get them enthused to want to try them and try to, you know, the last few years, I've been trying to bridge the gap between the growers and the garden centers. And that's why I started my project Go Grow Natives last year. And so I got 12 garden centers to agree to sell my 12 plant selection that you can see on my website. And I thought, well, gee, it'd be stupid for me not to sell them. So that's when I started selling them. And native plants are just great. I mean, they thrive on neglect. So they bring joy, and the more you put in, the more surprises you're going to get, because then you're going to get the native bees and all of the specialized pollinators that need those special plants. You know, if we get too busy with putting in things from Australia, I mean, look, it's okay to have a little human eye candy. If we want something nice that maybe pollinators won't like, that's okay. But we need to plant with a purpose. We need to create the oasis in the sea of St. Augustine grass and concrete.
Well, I completely agree with you as a spokesperson for Audubon, but I genuinely agree as a biologist as well. And so Audubon Louisiana hosted a series on plants for birds, and that was largely, if not exclusively, focused on native plants. So there were 3 presentations in that series. And since I'm an employee of Audubon Louisiana, we also broadcast that, but not through the Baton Rouge Audubon Society Facebook page, but on the Audubon Louisiana Facebook page. Anybody who wants to go back and watch any of those videos, we have.
I did want to mention one more thing. This month, you can see I'm showcased in the Inside Northside magazine on page 39. You can look at it online. It's an article about me, and the graphics are really pretty. It shows monarchs, a flock of them barreling across the page. So it's really nice. And then you can go to my website and see the links. I also did a podcast with the Nature Nerd this month. Lane Faber is a wonderful lady, and she does great things with kids. And so we did a podcast about butterflies. And then I also did a podcast for JEDCO. They promote Jefferson Parish businesses. So I've been promoting myself this month, but got to get it out there, because next year my company is going to turn 100. It's hard to imagine that there are any businesses left that are that old, but here I am. So
Very impressive. Oh, continue. Your grandfather?
My grandfather worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture for 10 years, and they sent him all over the world solving pest problems. And when he came back to the New Orleans area in the early 1900s, there were some major pest problems, but nowhere to get any chemical to control them. So that's when he started our company in 21.
Can you put your website back up again?
Can you do that, sweetie?
Put the website back up.
Oh, okay. Let's see. let me go. I'd have to, let's see, I got to go back to the, yeah, hold on. I'll go back. Whoops, wrong way. That one?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. And my book is really fun. It's stories about the summer of 2016. And my main focus for that year was to raise all the Louisiana swallowtails. Even though I had already raised them sporadically, you know, as I find them on forays, field trips, and butterfly surveys, or just blacklighting, I didn't have good life cycle pictures. So I decided I wanted to raise all of them and get good pictures of the life cycle so I could write the book. So a lot of my friends are using this book to read to their children or grandchildren as bedtime stories, because most of the stories are about 3 pages long. Some are a little longer. But in the very beginning, you'll see a picture of the life cycle of the butterfly that we're about to talk about. And then you're inventorying this in your brain so that when you read the story, it'll help you recreate that scene in your mind. But also, when you go in the garden, if you see that, you'll know what it is. So I sneak the knowledge in, you know, knowledge plus fun equals learning. And so at the end of each chapter, you'll see the list of all the plants that you'll need to attract those to your garden. And I do have some moths in there too, even though it's a butterfly summer, because, you know, they're both Lepidoptera. So, and they're equally as amazing. Any other questions? It's kind of like a cat.
If feel free, if somebody wanted to hop in and ask a question, I'm going to read the comment that Dorothy Hudson added to the chat, which was that Dr. Lowry told us years ago that Caroline would take a stool in spring migration and actually sit in the bushes to watch the birds.
Oh, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to having some time to read that book, but haven't done it yet.
Well, that was kind of one of my questions. Yeah, I wondered exactly if you had read all of them.
I get so busy, you know, every day there's somebody calling me. Can you help me with this? Can you put this garden in there? Can you, you know, it's, and I'm just the girl who can't say no. Unfortunately. So I got a lot of projects going on all over the state. So it keeps me hopping, and it doesn't leave a lot of time for reading, unfortunately, unless I really sit down and concentrate. But I enjoy what I do. So
Linda, Ron is asking, is that your butterfly garden by the the USFS Work Center in Grant Parish?
No, I put the main big butterfly garden I put in was at the Welcome Center in Boyce, Louisiana, which is right north of Alexandria. And then 2 years later, they closed the Welcome Center because one of those Love's truck stops moved in next door. And so we moved all those plants to the Atchafalaya Basin Welcome Center. I have put in some native milkweeds at the Kentwood Welcome Center, and I'm also working now to enhance the garden at the Slidell Welcome Center. So we just got to keep them going, that's all. No, I guess that was somebody else that did that garden.
Donna LaFleur added that she loved to hear Caroline's story, and she is an inspiration. And I completely agree. I really didn't know this story until I saw your project in description. So it was good. I'm hopefully.
Thanks, Donna.
Some additional information for people who perhaps already knew her but didn't know as much as you have learned in your studies about her life.
She was so fascinating. I really, when all this COVID is over with, I'm going back up there because I really want to go see where her home was. It burned down, so it's not there. But the magnolia tree that she climbed in as a child is there, and I want to go see that.
Oh, wonderful.
And I just want to see that area.
Well, and Donna added that she completed an art quilt celebrating Caroline Dormon's life for an exhibit in Baton Rouge.
Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to say. I almost forgot. There's a Girl Scout in Natchitoches. Her name is Gloria Church, and she is trying to raise money to get a historical marker for Caroline Dormon right on the road by Briarwood.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I made a link on my thing. I'll check tomorrow to make sure I have a link on my website. But her name is Gloria Church, and it's one of those. It's not a GoFundMe, but whatever. And so when you donate 20, I think it's $20, you get this little pin that's got a picture of her next to Grandpappy, and it says Caroline Dormon. I said, "Oh, I want that," and a little thank you note from Gloria. And I think that's just so inspiring to me because she needs that marker. She worked so hard, she deserves it, and the fact that this young girl has taken the initiative to start this ball rolling, I think is fabulous. So anybody that wants to, please donate some money. Let's get that historic marker done. And I'll make sure tomorrow, I'll put the link tomorrow
Are you going to share the link on your Facebook
on
page?
my website, right? And on Facebook. I know it's on my Facebook page. It is on
Okay,
my Linda Barber Auld Facebook page because I remember posting it today. I was the 13th person to donate money. So I was like, oh, I'm number 13. Oh, and by the way, on that Louisiana Certified Habitat program, that is through the Louisiana Native Plant Society.
Mhm.
But also the NPI, the Native Plant Initiative, which is our Greater New Orleans Native Plant Society, is the ones that are doing the gardens around here. And I was the third. I really wanted to be first, but I was third. But I am, they have different levels. They have the silver, bronze, gold, and I'm gold, baby. Who wants to be anything but gold? So I've got 96 species, and now I just need 4 more, and I'm going to have 100 species on that little teeny property at my office. I was amazed when I saw that, but when you buy all these native plants, you get lanyap in the pots, and then you get all these little surprises of, wow, where did that come from? But that's the gardening pleasure of going out there and seeing what's out there, because what's out there today may not be there tomorrow, and what may not have been there yesterday. So you got to spend about 5 or 10 minutes. And all the helianthus is in bloom right now, and Doug Tallamy always said that you got to have helianthus because all the native bees need that to feed their babies, the pollen. So and when Doug Tallamy talks, people listen.
Well, on that note, I want to put in a plug for the presentation that is next month. It is on November 19th. It is Dr. Narango, and Tallamy was on her doctoral committee. So she studied under Tallamy. She is a postdoc now, and that presentation is actually titled "The Birds, the Bees, the Flowers, and the Trees, Why Plants Matter for Wildlife Conservation in Human-Dominated Landscapes."
Love it.
Yes. So
gotta see that.
November 19th, we'll make sure to record that one as well. That event is already posted on our Baton Rouge Audubon Society Facebook page. And so if you click on the event and scroll down, for anyone who's anxious to get it on their calendars, you can register via that Zoom link. We'll stream again on Facebook, but you can register now. And then I send out the announcements for upcoming brass presentations. And so I'll probably send that announcement via MailChimp in another couple of days, or maybe at the start of next week. So next Monday, I'll send out that announcement with those dates and links to register there through email as well.
Excellent.
Yeah. That should be a good one and still on topic.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't see anything on the Facebook page. Anybody else before we close it down in the Zoom chat?
I'd like to extend an invitation to people to join me on these butterfly counts that I do.
Mm-hmm.
They're through the North American Butterfly Association. You can check out their website. We're in Region 10. They're done all across the nation. But we do the one at Honey Island Swamp. And we just did it last month. And I had some master naturalists go with me, and we had a great time. I just wrote an article about it, so I'll be sending that to you.
Do you, where do you do the announcements before the accounts happen?
What I'm going to try to do is give it to the master naturalists, the societies, and then they can post it.
Mhm.
And you know, maybe I don't know if I'm going to put it on the website, because when you have that mission, you can't have too big of a group. It's got to be, 12 is about as many as you can do, because then it's like herding cats. You just, you're trying to get some distance on some trails so you can cover some area. But it is a good learning experience, and people always learn something when they come with me.
Well, I, for one, certainly hope to join you one day.
Good. I hope you will.
Well, you've been very inspiring in addition
Thank
to
you.
carrying out.
I thank you so much for the opportunity tonight. It's been very enjoyable, and I hope that everybody liked it. So thank you.
There's one more question just popped in.
Oh, okay.
Ann Roberts, thanks for the presentation. Actually, let's see. And she has to ask, Donna, is she a descendant of Doc Before, the man whom the new LA State Arboretum is named after? Donna, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself or if you want to answer in the chat. And then
no, I'm not a relative.
okay.
But I know someone who is.
And then let's see, Ron was suggesting that someone write a book, maybe you, Linda, giving Louisiana history of great nature friends. Caroline.
Of what now?
Oh, so he was naming it like Great Nature Friends. And then as an example, Caroline Dormon and John James Audubon. And
I see.
Kelby Uchley. Another.
I was just discussing this with Pat Drackett from Crosby about doing a play where we'd all dress up as important people. I think that would be more fun. Do a play of the important people. But anyway, it's a good idea. But right now I'm writing my second book. It's called Adventures in Bugland, and it's all stories about Gloucester. So
well, wonderful. So we'll be on the lookout for that. But I like the idea as well. I think I
think it would be so much fun. And she says, of course, you'll be Caroline. I'll have to get cat eye glasses.
Well, we can broadcast that via Zoom and Facebook whenever you have it prepared. The screenplay written.
Right. We all decided we're gonna try to work on that. Well, it's on the burner. We'll see.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. I'm glad that we were able to host you this evening, albeit via Zoom, but
thank you.
Previously able to make it to Baton Rouge, so this actually ended up working out so that we could.
It did. It really did. And I appreciate the opportunity of spreading the news about Caroline, because I think it needs to be done. So everybody needs to talk about Caroline.
All right. Well, we'll all go forward and hold at least one conversation about her tonight or tomorrow.
Awesome. Excellent.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna end the Zoom call, and I will hope to see everybody next month.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, good night.